So this is gonna be Larva versus Flash. It says it's epic, so we'll have to see if it is that epic. So we're gonna be on Circuit Breaker, pretty standard stuff. I'm by the way, guys, I'm really disappointed that I can't cast Fat versus AJ because I stayed up all night putting together this really nice overlay and everything. Like, it was like super professional looking, really nice. It even had like a little ad space that said powered by Maturino and everything. So I'm a bit disappointed that I'm not casting it today, but hopefully this will suffice for you guys who are looking forward to watching some Brew War today. And we'll just reschedule it for another time whenever I can get that information from Bisu Dagger. So the reason why I chose this particular game is because I always love watching Larva versus Flash. Larva is absolutely amazing at ZVT as of recent, and it's just because he marathons games against Flash and Last all the time, and it's making him pretty much a god at this matchup. He's really, really good at this, but he still gets so frustrated by Flash, so it's always fun to see Larva's reaction to Flash, as well as just seeing his crisp and clean play in this matchup. This is going to be on Circuit Breaker. Circuit Breaker is the new standard map. I always say this, but it's definitely become more of a standard. It's the new Fighting Spirit. People realize Fighting Spirit's kind of a little imbalanced, especially for Terran. It's not very good for Zerg overall, so I guess it's decent for Zerg against Protoss, but in any case, people realize it wasn't that balanced. Circuit Breaker is a little bit more balanced just because you have those mineral-only expansions. So if we look at the openings from both players, there's nothing out of the ordinary. Flash got really lucky with a first scout with his SCV, so he's going to know exactly what's going on. He's not going to be really surprised by it, but having this SCV out here really early does cause a little bit of problems for Larva. He needs to make sure there's not any proxy racks. That's why you saw him bring his drone out to the middle of the map and kind of search in a really awkward random position. He's just trying to make sure there's no proxy racks, make sure he's got to bring the second drone down here just to make sure there's not a bunker building. Even had to pull his Overlord back just a little bit as well. So it's one of those annoying things. If you scout first through your SCV, you can definitely threaten bunker pressure, and the Zerg player has to respond to it a little bit, especially if they go for that greedier 13 pool. I'm not sure if I think Larva went for the 13 pool, not the 11. But looks like Larva is going to be going for the standard triple hatch into Lair. Probably going to see Mutalisk coming out this game. Meanwhile, Flash just doing the pretty standard when racks expand. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Let's see if he'll put down a gas before his second barracks. It looks like that is going to be the plan. He's not going to go for the 2 barracks opening. The 2 barracks opening definitely gives you a little bit more pressure in the early game and allows you to do some early timings before the mules get out. I'm going to turn the game up just a little bit, and hopefully Larva doesn't start screaming. So Larva actually playing pretty greedy. He waited a long time to make these lings, but he is going to be able to push this SCV out of his base, and that's really nice because it allows him to oh wow, he actually killed the SCV. That's impressive. So it allows him to kind of hide what he's going to be doing. This way he can go either for the lurkers or the spire at tier 2 and force Flash to waste some scans. If he does go for the lurkers, it's actually really good to waste those scans early on. And a couple one ling going down. So really nice by Flash just to kind of patrol around out in front, not be too afraid with his Marines, and not give free scouting information to Larva. But you can see that because Flash has no scout, he's playing a little bit safer. He's actually going to get that bunker up. It's surprising that he doesn't already have a supply depot up there to kind of separate and block the lings. But looks like Larva is going to be going for that spire play, not going to be going for the lurkers. And Flash going for the early engineering bay. So this means he's going to be going for the early +1 and going for probably the +1 5 racks build that he's so well known for now. And once he gets that production up, we'll have to see if he switches into SK turn, which is going to include the double starport, or if he's going to go a little bit more standard and just go into the tank plus vessel play. So both players just kind of chilling out, just doing a little bit of scouting. Larva is going to get in here and be annoying with the wing, maybe pull a couple of Marines out of position so he can possibly run by. This is just being annoying. He's not going to be able to pull any Marines out of position. Flash is too smart for that. Flash is not going to be dumb enough to pull 6 or 7 Marines out of position to kill one Ling, so not going to happen. We're going to try it with 3 Lings. He did pull out a stem. That's actually really nice. He pulled out 2 stems. That's actually really nice. He might be able to get into the main if he does this correctly, but it's not going to happen. Flash too smart. But, oh, he still gets 2 Lings into the main. That's actually beautiful. So he's going to scout this 5-racks out immediately. He knows what's going on. Typically, when you scout the 5-racks, you get your third base up a little bit later, because there's no reason to rush it against the 5-racks. Instead, you just go for the heavy Mutilus play while getting up your lurkers. And once you have the Mutilus plus the lurkers, then you can take the third base pretty safely. Because if your opponent tries to go for the third base, you can easily just trade his natural for your third base, which is a huge win for Zerg. And when you have the lurkers, you can blockade off the army, prevent the army that's out on the map from actually getting back in. He's going to start just poking in here with the Mutilus, trying to do a little bit of damage. Flash doing a really good job of being in position with his units. And he's probably going to be searching for that third base pretty soon. I'm a bit surprised at how stationary his army in the middle of the map is. And this just shows that even if you're the best player in the world, the multitasking in this game is so intense that you can definitely have those 5 to 10 seconds of inattention where you have an army out in the middle of the map that could be pushing up to that third base that's just literally doing nothing. But Larva is going to be coming up here. It looks like he's going to be trying to split off this army, maybe kill it off before it combines with the other one. But Flash doing a really good job of keeping his units together so that they don't get picked off too easily. He does lose one of his Marines there. But the goal here now is that Larva just wants to split up this army and try to keep them from getting together. Once they get together, this is so much harder to deal with. And the 2 Hydralisks that we're going to go up there and morph as lurkers are going down. Now, this is actually disastrous for a Zerg player. The only thing that can save Larva at this point is just a really good Mutamicro, which he's doing a good job of so far. But typically at this point, this is just a straight-up loss for the Zerg player. But Larva doing a pretty good job of microing on that bridge, taking advantage of that bottleneck to kill off a bunch of Marines for free. He's going to be reinforcing with more Lings, but this is a very difficult position to be in as the Zerg player. You never want to be trading Mutiling versus a 5-racks because unless you're trading inside the Terran space, it's so cost inefficient comparatively, and you're going to continue killing. When you lose these mutas, it's a really big deal. But he didn't manage to kill off this army and all of the medics, so that's really the big key here is a lot of those medics go down. There's only 2 medics with this army. As long as Larva keeps microing really well, he's actually going to do pretty nicely in defending the space. And this is actually impressive. I have not seen this style of play being able to defend a third base with just Mutilus for a very, very long time. So this is very impressive play coming out from Larva right now. And one of the lurkers does get sniped off, but for right now, Larva's held, and Flash doesn't have any more units. Flash is going to be going into SK's Terran style. He's got the double starport going up right now, and Larva is he's in a state where he just needs to survive until he gets those defilers up. He had his hive building right now. I'm not sure if he put up the defiler mound or not yet, but he's going to kill off even more units from Flash. And this is a little bit wasteful from Flash to go ahead and push out with an extra group of Marines with no medics. I'm not sure that that was a great idea from him, but the hive is finished now. There are going to be defilers on the way pretty soon, and it's just a matter of, can Larva get enough drones up this third base before he switches into unit-only production? And that's really the problem that all Zergs face. Is it's not necessarily that they can't get the right units up, it's that they can't get the right economy up before they get the right units up. One of the advantages of Terran and Protoss is the fact that they've always been able to make units while simultaneously making workers. And when you can't do that as Zerg, it makes it very difficult to actually deal with it, because you have to rely heavily on your ability to take expansions early and run up before your opponent gets anything significant. And really nice play from Larva, again holding on to this ramp. So Flash isn't going to be able to break up the ramp, he's not going to be able to break that third. And that was actually amazing. I have no idea how Larva's doing such a good job of holding on in this game. He tries to pick off these two medics, doesn't get it, but he's going to waste at least a little bit of mana on those medics. Right now he's just holding this ramp with only Mutalisk and a couple of one lurker, and another break tries to go up the ramp. The Mutalists are going to try to get in the way. The lurker does go down, but that's it for this army. Another army moving across the map with the first two science vessels. That's going to be really obnoxious to deal with, but we do have the oh, that was a really bad split. There is a swarm on the ramp, so the swarm on the ramp is going to be able to hold this off for now. Doesn't quite get that science vessel, but we are going to see just kind of a hold on this ramp with a couple lings. Really cute play. You don't need lurkers on top of a ramp. You just need two lings to prevent the units from running out. I love it. And meanwhile, he's just trying to reinforce. Now, the danger at this point for the Zerg player is, as Terran continues to build up the science vessel count, it's going to be harder and harder to hold. But Flash is actually decides to let go of the pressure. He's going to go ahead and swap directly into mech right now. He's not going to continue to push with the Marine medic. I think that's a little surprising, considering the position that he was in. But maybe he figured there were more workers up there than he expected. So, looks like he's going into that mech transition, and we are officially going into a long game. This is going to be a pretty epic game, I can feel already. One of those long split map scenarios where Flash is just going to wait out his opponent. So, what I always say about Zerg versus mech in this position is you can't let the mech player get to a split map position. If Terran gets to split map position, it's going to be impossible to ever match them unless you go queens. Now, we have seen Larva in the past go queens against Flash specifically, but it's really hard to pull off consistently, and you still have to have a really strong 4-base economy in order to make it work. He's going to... Wow, that was a great plague. Really good plague coming out from Larva right there. He's going to get both the science vessels and a lot of Marine medic. So that's going to waste all of that medic energy and the... Oh, womp womp. He does get one more plague off, but I think all those units are already plagues. But it's going to be really easy to kill off the science vessels as well. Just build one Mutalisk and you just kill them off. And this is the point in the game where Terran expands like crazy. Terran can take 4 or 5 bases, maybe even 6. And Zerg can't really do anything about it because there's enough Marine medic out on the map to prevent the Zerg player from pushing out across the map. And the addition of a couple of vultures for spider mines around the third base makes it impossible for any units to actually get out of there. So you end up in a situation where the Zerg player can't really do anything about the Terran player expanding really quickly. But there is going to be a certain time period coming up where the Zerg player is going to have a strong enough... Whoa, that mind drag! That mind drag was amazing. There is going to be a certain time period coming out. Oh, nice! He snipes 2 of the science vessels that were plagued earlier, so... Good stuff coming out from Larva so far. He does have a couple of AFK units. He needs to get those in position pretty soon. but there is a certain time period while Terran is expanding like crazy where you can definitely get up to max or nearly max and start pushing your opponent down. Right now you see there's a huge supply difference right now. Zerg is only at 120 versus 170, and this looks super, super bleak for the Zerg player, but that's just how this matchup goes. Zerg always has quite a low supply at this point in the game, but once the Defiler, once the Ultralisk tech comes down and all these bases start being secured, it's once all of the drones are finished making that you can start really making a big push as the Zerg player. Right now it's just down to a couple tactical plays in the top side and the bot side. Right now, probably Larva is going to be getting up that drop tech as well. So he's going to be looking to drop into Flash's main or into the high ground area up on the top right. Snipes a couple more of these. Oh god, more mines. That was beautiful. Snipes a couple science vessels, kills off a lot of that bio with mine drag. So really nicely played there from Larva. Doing a really good job of being cost efficient at a time when he's down in supply. But as you see, the supply has been creeping up for Larva, and he is going to eventually be able to overpower this mech army. A big push coming in from Flash here. This is a little bit unusual. You don't usually see this. Usually mech players will just they'll just turtle super hard and just build a whole bunch of missile turrets. But I think in this case what Flash wants to do is he wants to detract attention from the top side of the map so he can get that high ground main up. But it's not going to happen. Larva is already on his way with a bunch of drops in the middle of the map, whole bunch of ultras running across the map right now. But does he have enough to actually break anything? Is this an actual drop? I don't know if that's an actual drop or if that's just a fake, because it's not really going anywhere important at the moment, and a lot of those just died for free. So Ultra's coming in right now. This is one of the problems though, you can't just send pure Ultra. Pure Ultra actually is just complete trash against anything except for bio. You really need those Lings in there against mech because the Lings are what does all the damage. But really good surround. Nice job baiting the mech army down and then coming back up. He's not going to be able to kill off all these tanks because he's going through a choke where there's already tanks. So we're back at a situation where Zerg had a chance to break it, but spent a lot of money on Ultras that didn't do anything. So at this point, I think Larva's going to be trying to break the middle of the map and separate the two Terran bases, but once that high ground area up on the top right is established, it becomes so much harder to actually deal with this. But another big wave coming in here, they're going to be able to kill off a couple of these tanks, but I'm not sure if this is becoming cost efficient. A couple more Ultralisks coming in and some Lurkers as well, but without any swarms, eventually this is going to start getting cleaned up. There's a good swarm, so he's going to be able to push back into this base and get some Lurkers underneath that swarm. Once you get some Lurkers underneath these swarms, it becomes so much easier to deal with things. And Flash just being cute, just trying to block units from getting down that ramp and actually getting into the base. It's just a small way for him to buy a little bit of time. And Flash individually microing these two tanks, what the hell? What a god. Is he actually going to kill off the... Oh my gosh, he keeps the two tanks alive. That's actually the most insane thing I've ever seen. And he surrounds the other Ultralists with SCVs. Holy crap. Is Flash actually the best player on Earth? Please? Hello? What? These tanks are still alive? Are these... Holy crap, are you kidding me? Those tanks survived? What the hell? Oh my god. This is why Flash is the best player on Earth, because he can do stuff like that. But Larva's done a pretty good job. He broke down that middle base, and now he's sending a whole bunch of units up to the top right as well. I'm not sure it's going to work without drops, but he is starting to pick off these tanks on the low ground at the very least. Really good job of splitting his units and sort of distracting the tanks from targeting at the right units. So very well done. Looks like a couple drops are going to come now and drop on top of the tanks on the high ground here. This is something that a lot of Terran players do, where they start putting up these tank barricades, but they don't quite have the resources to put up missile turrets yet. And you see, part of the reason I think that the missile turrets are late is just because Flash has been so time invested in pushing across the map right now and dealing with that push that came into the 3 quad base. Let's take it. Whoa, I just had a big sneeze. Sorry about that, guys. I was holding on that sneeze for like 30, 40 seconds. Anyhow, just continual pressure coming across the map. I would love to see the Jaedong-esque drops where you just drop 2 lurkers and a defiler into the 3rd and 4th bases. It makes it so much easier, but here comes the Mutalisk switch a little bit earlier than expected, but considering the damage that he did to that 3rd base, it makes a lot of sense. He gets to get the Mutalisk in here, and he's going to be able to kill off the remaining tanks that are here while he pushes into the main with drops and other things like that. So, very nicely done. He's going to be able to kill off all these tanks on the high ground here, and there's no doubt that Flash actually made a couple of Goliaths from that area as well. So, it's very easy for Larva to actually just flood in units here and break this base if he wants to. He's going to kill off a couple of these missile turrets. Really smart play to kill off the missile turrets and make it easier to get some drops in there a little bit later. But Flash is already in position with a couple of units. He's going to try microing these tanks the best that he can again. You saw he put all of his units together to try to limit the surface area, and he is going to be able to clean this up eventually. But a lot of damage was done, and a lot of SCVs killed off in that mineral-only expansion and a couple in the top right expansion by the Mutalisk. More units just moving across the map, and this time the target is going to be the 3 o'clock expansion. Now, Terran just has to hold on. If Terran can hold on and stabilize until he can actually get the full economy going on his bases, he's actually going to be in a great position. But Larva just doing a really great job of keeping up the pressure. He's prevented Flash from ever actually getting into a position where he can hold one area very stably. And Larva has prevented the split map positioning, the split map scenario from ever actually occurring. So a couple of Lings going to go through here, Lings being dropped on top of those tanks. We'll have to see if they kill off those tanks. They should be able to eventually with some smart micro. But lots of SCVs continuing to go down, and Larva is just continuing to flood in units, just non-stop Ling Ultra moving across the map, and it's so difficult to actually deal with this as the Terran player, and you're trying to stabilize, but there's even these Mutalisks flying around in your base trying to pick off SCVs. You're trying to focus on the middle of the map. You need your Goliaths there in case more the Mutalisks decide to pull back and kill off the Terran army. So smart play by Flash to push out in the middle of the map and kind of take some of the pressure off of them, allow him to put down more of these spider mines. But he is going to have to pull back eventually and focus on defending his bases. He actually loses the base in the 3 o'clock position, so that's really brutal. And more Mutalisk harassment coming in. Just Larva doing such an excellent job of, even in this late game, being smart about his Mutalisk usage and not just throwing them away on missile turrets or Goliaths. And lots of Lings getting up here on top of the tanks. The tanks are eventually going to be able to clean this up. This is a small crisis moment for the Zerg player, but if Larva can clean up this army, which he should be able to with the next couple of reinforcements, then he's going to be in a pretty good spot right now. Flash continually trying to move units across the map. He's got one more wave coming in, so as long as he weathers this wave, he's actually going to be in a pretty good spot. But those are some pretty good swarms. That's going to be able to clean up a couple of these tanks and cause some problems for Flash, be able to push this back for now. And more Lings and Ultras being flooded in. Just the macro from Larva is just insane. He's doing such a great job right now of cleaning up all these tanks. And once all the tanks are gone, it's going to be so much easier to clean this up. You see Flash doing a really good job of even mixing in a few Goliaths, making sure that he's not too weak right there. There is a Goliath in position now to deal with these Mutalisks, so Mutalisks aren't going to be able to do too much damage in the long run. But Flash has done a pretty good job of, by pushing out in the middle of the map, stabilizing the game right now. And the game is starting to go back in his favor. As long as he can find enough attention to actually build missile turrets in his main and his top right expansion, he's going to be in pretty good shape. He doesn't really necessarily need this position in the middle of the map. This isn't going to win him the game. What's going to win him the game is getting that economy up and getting an impregnable defense. If he can get that, then it's impossible for Zerg to actually break him, no matter how many wings, no matter how many ultras, no matter how many drops they try to do. So this army is somewhat sacrificial for Flash, but he is going to continually try to reinforce it, try to keep this push going. It's not, like I said, it's not important. But you see, the game has been going on for so long. There's been so much back and forth action. Both players hovering around 120 to 130 of their supply. So this is coming down to the wire, really. Eventually, at some point, both players are going to run out of money. Right now, it looks like Larva is slowly dwindling. He's a little bit down in supply. But I guess against mech, that's really not all that bad. Being down in supply against mech is not horrible when your numbers this low. When the mech army is above 170, then it's really scary. But when the mech army is down at 120 or less, a lot of that is actually SCVs. So this army is not really all that big. And with the right swarms and the right splits with your lings, you can actually clean up the mech army pretty easily when it's this small. But Flash is doing a really good job of microing his units really well, splitting up his tanks and doing a really good job. And Larva's slowly starting to bleed out. He hasn't been able to break this, and he's going to try for a small Mutalisk switch right now, which I think is a really smart idea. He killed off most of the Goliaths. He's going to be able to make a couple of Mutalisks to push this back right now, and to some degree that prevents Terran from pushing forward the way that they want to, and buys him a little bit more time. But Flash is actually just going to go straight in with all his ultras and try to kill off all of those drones. All of the drones should die off at this base. Should not be a single one left. And that's pretty brutal for Larva. This is one of those times where I really think that Zerg players should get the late game burrow. And not only saves you from eraser tricks, it also allows you to deal with situations like that where a whole bunch of vultures come to your base, you can burrow all your drones. And if the Terran player isn't paying attention and isn't scanning, then all the drones get away. It's perfectly safe. So, but Larva continuing to just try to deal with this harassment. And these vultures have done a huge amount of damage in that base as well. Larva's going to have to remake a couple of his drones, and she does, but it's a little bit brutal to have to remake drones at this point in the game. Like I said earlier, you're always, as a Zerg player, you're always trying to balance this fight between economy, trying to get enough drones up, trying to get enough bases up, and trying to build army. And you only have so much Larva and so much money. So every time you have to spend money on drone, that's not a Ling, that's not an Ultra. It kind of sucks for you. So more vulture harassment coming through. And it looks like Flash is going to set up a siege coming in through this low ground base, which is going to be very difficult for the Zerg player to deal with. And now that Flash has had those top right bases mining for a while, he's been able to get up some defenses. He's going to be able to easily deal with any sort of counterattacks that come through there. And at this point, if Zerg tries to target that top right-hand base, there's a very good chance that Flash can actually push to the bottom of the map and cut off the main and kill off all the attacks. So that's something that Zerg can't really do. Zerg kind of has to contest in this lower half of the map, unfortunately. And a ton of vultures coming in. Flash is actually just going to target down all of the drones and just sacrifice all of those vultures. To some degree that's worth it, to some degree it's not. If you look at it purely in terms of monetary value, that was not an efficient trade. But at the same time, once again, every time that you disrupt the economy of the Zerg player, it becomes so much harder to deal with. So, Larva trying a couple of cute drops in the middle of the map, but it's not going to happen. Flash has got control of this map, and he's in the split map scenario situation, and there are no queens in sight. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is the danger zone that you run into, where despite being ahead for most of the game, I would say, Larva, he wasn't able to actually stop the split map. He wasn't able to break the Terran at any point in time and kill off that top right-hand base or do significant damage to the main. And as a result, he's in a situation where he's going to have to try to fight cost efficiently with Ling Ultra Defiler against mech. And if you've watched any Brood War at all, you know that fighting cost efficiently against mech is basically impossible. Um, it's really, really difficult to do. And also, Ling Ultra Defiler is one of the most throwaway comps in the game. So it's pretty rough. He's going to try to do a big drop in here, but Missile Turret's already in position, and as well as several of these Vultures with mines, they're going to be able to push that away for right now. Larva doing a really good job of cleaning up all of these mines with just a handful of Lings. But there's the queen switch. That's what I'm talking about. So I think these queens are a little bit late, but we are going to be seeing the broodlings coming out. And what that means is anytime Flash tries to push forward on the map, these queens are going to be able to come up and snipe about 6 or 7 of them at a time. And once you lose 6 or 7 tanks, it's a lot easier to break this mech army, especially if you can get a flank with a whole bunch of Defilers, Ling Ultra. So this is actually not bad for Larva at this particular moment in time. He's managed to do a pretty good job of splitting the map and coming back. Unfortunately, loses that Defiler. That's going to be a little bit painful. The mech army is so big and bulky to move, it's really difficult to actually get it in here. But as Flash is moving across the middle of the map, you can see that Larva's actually setting up a gigantic flank. He's going to be he's going to have an insane art coming across onto this army. A couple more swarms go down. This is really nice. It just kind of creates a pathway of safety going into those tanks. It's going to be really difficult for the tanks to push past that as well. So the real question is, can he hold on until the queens get enough energy? Because if he can't get enough energy for all of the broodlings, then it's not going to matter that he has the queens. The queens are going to be literally useless. So we'll have to see how things turn out right now. Flash has gone ahead and taken all the bases on his side of the map. He hasn't tried getting the 12 or the 6 yet, but really good so far just to play around a couple of Dark Swarms, sitting in a couple Lings at a time to pick off tanks or clear out mines. And eventually this Terran army will slow down enough to where the queens will be effective. So waiting for the queens. This is really a big moment, is when the queens come out. A cute little drop coming out. It's probably not going to be able to do that much, especially with all of those Goliaths there. But still just waiting for the queens. Can the queens get enough energy? And meanwhile, he is sending this group of Lings up to the top right, so that was a really nice play, especially since it looks like Flash pulled almost all of his units to help with this push. And more storms coming out. And Ling's picking off a few of these front-running tanks. So, very nice play so far from Larva to actually still continue pushing this back, despite the excellent positioning of Flash in the middle of the map. Once these queens come out, here come the queens, here come the queens! And that's about, yeah, that was about 6 or 7 of those tanks going down. But surprisingly, there aren't a lot of units coming out from Larva. He really needs to break this as soon as he can. He's still holding onto some energy on those queens. It looks like he has enough energy to actually break this, but he's not actually going in quite yet. Looks like the queens are going in right now. They're going to try to snipe a couple of more of these tanks, and the mech army is starting to dwindle. That's a lot of Lings, holy crap. So it looks like for now this this push has been cleaned up, but it did take down the base in the process. So not 100% cost efficient, and he's going to be sending Pureling up against these vultures. That's not going to be pretty, but a lot of tanks went down there for basically free because that's how good queens are. Queens are amazing when you get into these late game scenarios. The base is somehow still alive. And Larva actually transferring some drones down there, so he's pretty confident he can hold this. He's continuing to push in right now. Looks like the second wave of queen attacks might be coming in pretty soon, but Flash somehow doing an amazing job of holding on right now, and he's building up the Goliath count. He's still managed to keep a couple of vultures in his groups. He's not going pure tank Goliath. He's got a couple of those vultures just for those spider mines. That's so smart for him to do. No Lings are going to be able to get in here. And despite cleaning up a lot of those tanks with the queens, he's not able to break this army. This army is going to be able to break his 9 o'clock base. And there's the GG. Holy crap. You can see he's frustrated, but man, that game was pure craziness.